Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode 10 of our Exploring the CVerse series here in TEW 2020. We are going to look at WLW World Level Wrestling, and as always, I appreciate you guys being patient with me on the channel. I think if you've been a long time subscriber to the channel, you know kind of January to like March can be a bit busy in terms of my work stuff and everything, and I've kind of said that before. I know the channel's been kind of off and on over the past little while now, but I'm going to keep working on videos, and I think we're getting closer to hopefully being back to a regular schedule. But, you know, we were able to kind of push through, get through the Royal Rumble in our WWE series, which I know took forever, but I do have the next episode of that coming up here this week, and yeah, I just got a lot of stuff in the works, so I appreciate you guys. Again, still a lot of new subscribers added to the channel, even though we're not doing as many videos weekly as we used to. But I do appreciate all the great feedback, the continued comments, and support overall of the channel. I promise we've got some fun stuff in the works. It's just it is a bit of at a snail's pace right now, just based on some other obligations. So let's get into WLW here, though. As we start, kind of with a company that is ninth in the world. So, you know, when we look at it kind of compared, and of course we're in Japan here with this company, and ninth in the world, small, $75,000. So certainly, you know, when you compare it to the big giants, not a lot of money to work with, smaller company. But the big story with WLW here is this number right here, the 16% momentum. Now, why is that? Because we go to the backstory here, and, kind of your blend of the Lucha Libre style and, you know, sort of your hard-hitting Japanese style, blending those two together, and a company that was making strides throughout the years, but then the tsunami, the collapse of the modern Japan movement, that was one thing, but then came the big scandal, 2018, which was obviously between the two games, TEW 16 and now 20. The Yakuza were involved, and so that led to a big scandal, and assets frozen. The company basically shut down for a year. And so now you're essentially looking at this, and why do they not have momentum? It's because of that. This is a company that is basically in restart mode. And so that is an interesting challenge if you want to look at it that way. You're essentially rebuilding from the ground up. But as I'll tell you, I think this is actually one of the more underrated companies to play with in the game. Now, I'm not saying it's the easiest, but I think it's underrated in terms of actually what you can do with WLW here. And it's always been one that I've been kind of intrigued by, but again, more so before the scandal and the shutdown, and to basically, you know, knock all their momentum. So it used to be a lot of fun. Can it still be that? Let's look at it. Product-wise, again, you're having the blend there, like we said, of sort of the two different styles, but you're also adding some sports entertainment elements to it, so that's kind of an interesting trio of, concepts, I guess is the best way to put it, as it says here. And so it is one where you've kind of got a lot of different options in terms of how you present matches or storylines or whatever. So that is something worth noting. There is no face-heel divide, so that's something else worth noting here. But again, you can always play around with that if you want to lean more into the sports entertainment side of things. From a storyline standpoint, you know, maybe just leave the matches to these two things here, but that's certainly up for debate. But of course, because of the style, there's less wear and tear on the workers, as you see here in this note. Kind of your typical breakdown here of matches and angles, events 80-20, TV shows 70-30, which you don't have to worry about right now because there's no TV show at a small company, but should you get there, that is something to at least consider with the current product. And as I always say, you can always change the product if you want, but that is at least something from the start that you have to look at there. Looking at the event schedule, yes, it is a touring company. If you want to go back through and see kind of our Burning Hammer video we did, I think that was number 8 in the series, we talked about kind of the challenges of a touring company. But you look at some of these, it's not as intimidating, right? Because it's a smaller company. And so, only 4 tour days here before your first event in January. Then you go up to 6 tour days, and it kind of, alternates as you go throughout. So it's not as intimidating maybe as some of the bigger schedules for bigger companies. you're just booking shows essentially. It's just figuring out how to best navigate the touring schedule can be challenging, for even people like me, who, don't necessarily play with a lot of touring companies. It's figuring out the best way to kind of, alternate, your roster basically, and just kind of figure out different matchups and all that. But I think there were some great comments that were left on the Burning Hammer video. So if you want to go back to that one, number 8 in the Exploring the CVerse series, I think some people left some good comments on booking touring companies. So you can find that there, because that's what we do in this series. It's more of me talking through these companies, but it really is about the great comments that are left by the viewers, because that can kind of help you with some tips and tricks for companies like this. So again, this is kind of your touring schedule. Typical there. Season finale is in August, so you have to go way down here for a touring schedule, of course. Champions and Challengers, that is the season finale for WLW. So again, you can play around with these fun names and everything. They all have kind of an and to them, right? Pride and Pain, Hard and Fast, Fast and Furious, Life and Death, Samurai and Ninja. So a lot of interesting names here for these event schedules. Destiny and Desire. A lot you can play around with on that. All right, titles. Usual set of titles here. You got the Universal Champion. That's not Roman Reigns. That is Masakura, who we're gonna talk about him on the roster standpoint. This is one of the reasons why I am intrigued by this company, because of basically this guy right here, and we'll talk about him in a minute. But tag team titles here. Prestige, you can look at it, kind of understand what that is. Show Stealer is an interesting title you could always use. It's something a little different, as it says here, Young High Flyers. So basically a young, cruiserweight championship essentially, but you can kind of play around with it in terms of how you want to, kind of approach from a storyline standpoint, how you use the title. But essentially a cruiserweight championship. So that is worth noting there. All right, some other just random stuff before we get into the roster. Backstage is fine, 85%, so it's not 100%. You have a couple negative influences here. One in particular that I don't love to see, because he is someone, as I'll talk about in the roster, that is a good prospect. Facilities-wise, you got a training facility. The Project Arkham School is there. So, you can certainly upgrade, try to continue to alter anything you need to there. In terms of alliances, you don't have any of those at the moment. You don't obviously have a developmental territory. There's no child companies because it's a small company. So we don't have to really go through all that as it stands right now. I guess we did forget to look at the size, right? That's important. So size-wise, you're at small right now. But there's a really good chance to jump up to medium with some good shows early on, because you need to get to 59 popularity in the home region, which is right here, and you're at 52 now, and you just have to achieve 35 in any others. Well, you're already there in terms of 48 everywhere else. So really, there's a good chance to jump up to medium, and that jump from small to medium can be significant, right? So I think that's something to definitely keep in mind with WLW. It's really just booking some good shows early on, hitting that number to push you up. If you can just get to 59, you jump into medium, things get a lot more interesting. So that's why I think that there's more intrigue. But to do that, of course, you got to hope that your entire roster doesn't get, basically taken away from some of the bigger companies, which quickly before we get there, it's worth remembering you do have a war basically declared with Burning Hammer. So they have a lot more resources, bigger company. So talent-wise, that is where things could get a little dicey. Because, of course, you are a small company, which is why we highlight this area. Every contract is a handshake contract. So, again, that's always one of the challenges, too, of these kind of companies, is that you never know who could swoop in and take some of these talents that you're fully invested in right off the bat. And you got to hope that doesn't happen, because, not a lot of wiggle room necessarily in terms of the overall talent. All right, quickly going through the roster here. Talked about Karada. However you want to pronounce it. I think it's Karada. Sounds good to me. But I think that, if you look at what he has, I mean, again, he's like the ultimate, he's the biggest star in the company, and only 29 years old. That's where trying to shield him from some of the bigger companies, given the fact he has a 92 star quality, 85 on the sex appeal. His in-ring work is good. I mean, he's got it all. Look at the charisma. Look at the microphone. I mean, this guy is the total package. And so total superstar. And I think this is one where, hey, if you could just protect this guy and not let him go elsewhere, if somebody doesn't steal him away, he is absolutely the cornerstone of the promotion. Like, he is the guy. So that, I think, is something that's kind of fun to think about. Eagle Kawasawa here, 37, so kind of rising in age, but as we said, this sort of style isn't going to be too wearing or on these kind of older workers. So that's, again, someone that you can have to work good matches with. You can see the skills there. 52 overness too. And speaking of Karada, his overness 58, 51. So I mean, this guy's gaining popularity even in the United States at this point. He's a superstar for sure. I look at the next big things group here. You've got Uzami, who I think 22 years old. Biggest thing I saw when I did my research here on WLW. Star quality, again, 84, 91 on the sex appeal. So, like, you've got the guy that you want to bring into the teenage audience. This is the guy that's bringing in the teenage audience right here. Because, look, favorite of the teen girls for obvious reasons. The total, heartthrob here with this guy. And, so someone else, he's a project, right? He's someone you can absolutely build up, get these skills kind of pushing in the right direction. But the star quality's there, charisma's there, all that stuff. So that's someone else that's kind of fun to use on the roster. And really, look at like different people like this too. Kuroki here, 20-year-old, but good star quality, already good skills in the ring. And so, again, there's some really talented young workers on this roster. And I really like the hot prospects list here. You go up and down the line again, which these two are part of it we just looked at. But, I mean, there's some good workers here. Amagawa here, 80 star quality. Look at the in-ring work. Like, already doing this here, only 29. So I think there's a fun group of talent to build around. Again, it's just hoping that they do not get stolen by other companies. That's always something you think about as a small company. And so that's always kind of in the back of your mind. But, I really like this group. And we're just going to look at these for now. You look at the kind of the talking. So, again, Karada still at the top here. So, I mean, look, he's the number one guy, period. I talked about Shogun earlier. He was in the backstage influences, a mildly negative influence. But 25 years old, like, decent star quality. Look at the in-ring work. And I tell you, I like this. For a smaller roster, for a small company, there is a lot to like here. Like, I really do. And maybe maybe some people are going to like, and as always, leave your comments if you've played as WLW, what you think of the roster, how are the games gone for you. But maybe I'm just, overlooking some things, but I really am excited by the possibility of just starting with a company like this and having a smaller roster. I just think the roster is very intriguing. So, again, you got some showstoppers here and all that, and just kind of the usual stuff there. But we'll quickly kind of, filter the roster a little bit. It's nice not to have the scroll bar here, too. If you don't want an intimidating roster, you don't want the scroll bar, and there's not one here, meaning you got a small one to work with here. If we kind of filter it by our usual filters we do, we'll kind of look at, I guess we could start with the star quality. We'll go 70 on this. Again, you've got some good stars that are here. Really, it is like, and you look how young some of these people are, 19 years old, like 83 star quality. That's a project. Like, that is someone, you got a young lion here that can be groomed for superstardom, as you see here. Like, these are kind of things that, for me, can keep me hooked on a game like this. Like, it can really hook me into the save. Just knowing I've got a 19-year-old here that, has great star quality, can start building up some of the skills, great athleticism. Those are the things that can keep me kind of, invested in a save. So, again, I really like this roster for a small company. And like I said, I'm not guaranteeing that it will be, the best game anyone could ever play in TEW 2020. It may not be the best company out there to play with, but to me, this is on my short list because I just like the way the roster is set up. And we've gone through all these guys. Like, this is a fun group right here. So, I mean, you got Tiger Prince here at 24 years old. Not the greatest skills, but has good star quality. yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like about this roster. So, all right, let's take this down. We'll go up to look at kind of the age difference, and we like to do that sometimes. Again, and the bulk of your roster, because remember, the roster only went down to about right here. And the bulk of your roster is people under 30. And so, that is something, too, that they are going to be focused on by bigger companies, but depending on how many you can keep, there's plenty to work with there for that. So, yeah, I think as I navigate this roster, I think there's a lot to like here about this one. And so, I think WLW, just with the roster, the different styles that you're going to have here too, and I think that's something to remember. You've got some workers with different styles because of the blend, right? The product is a blend. And so I think just having workers that have different styles, but you do have a lot of athletic, sort of entertaining, just the entertainment value. But you've also got some of the serious knock your head off type guys like this, right, as impactful wrestlers. So this guy I love this this image here. Like, for some reason, like, I'm looking at this guy, I'm like, this guy is a future Hall of Famer. He just got the look. At 25 years old, he looks like he wants to tear my head off. And so I can build around a guy like that in the CVerse. So I find that very intriguing. So all right, there's a quick look at WLW. Again, it's a smaller company, so we really don't have to spend a ton of time on these smaller ones because the roster is obviously not as big in size. There's not as many things to go through. You're not going through TV shows and all that sort of stuff. We did forget to look at the stables. So Kurata is the leader of the Progress stable. And look at this group. Like, this is a fun group right here because you've got both of these guys are 20 years old. So Hosatani here, 20 years old. Kuroki, 20 years old. We talked about Shogun here, 25, and then of course Kurata's 29. So yeah, I mean, it's the group of young rising stars. So that's kind of a fun group you can build around. Or if you want to just be the Cult of Gloom, which, as you could probably tell from the sound, not exactly the most positive stable that's ever been created, but you got a lot of fun guys to work with here, and the visuals are good too. Like, this is totally the Cult of Gloom. Like, you don't even have to do a second take to look at these guys and say, oh yeah, that's the Cult of Gloom right there. So good there. And storylines, you got 4 storylines to start with. Kurata versus Kawasawa is the hottest storyline at 54. You only need 35 with 2 of those, basically, because you're a small company. So you're meeting that already with these 2. So the stable war here, and you've got the main, the championship storyline you've got there. So there you go. There's some thoughts on WLW. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you played as them before, what are your thoughts on the company? How many workers did you get stolen away from you right off the bat? But there's plenty of other. Remember, you can always rebuild the roster with other young stars out there. But for a starting roster, for a small company, one that's basically restarting from scratch, I think there's a lot to have some fun with WLW. So let me know what you think in the comments. And as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I don't know, guys. I feel like I've hit sort of a creative wall at times where, like, I'm trying to regain my groove that I was in there for a while, for months, and it's just trying to get through it. Like, it is a writer's block, whatever you want to call it. Like, it is trying for that creative breakthrough, and for some reason, it's not all the way through there just yet. We're getting close, I think. We're breaking through the wall. We just haven't taken the wall all the way down at this point. So doing my best, but I am working on this stuff and just around everything else. And I'm also thinking about doing some other different videos. I've talked about this with some people. People have asked, for me to try out some other kind of mods. Also just some, different save ideas and such. And so we might do some of those in kind of some separate videos to sort of take a look at some other mods that are out there, and maybe, it's maybe getting close for me to start a new save. And the reason why I'm thinking about doing that is just to kind of start from scratch with something and maybe get those creative juices flowing again to kind of get me back on track. So again, I appreciate you guys, all the great support, great feedback, and yes, on the next episode of our Exploring the CVerse series, we will explore even further as we are going to head back to the United States, and we will go to New York for the old school New York City Wrestling.